Where is this folder? Where is the event folder?
We started the session, right?
No. Uh-huh.
और 15 को बट अभी से मैं चालू करूँगा 5 अभी चालू कर देंगे उत्सव के सिस्टम चालू करेंगे अभी नहीं उत्सव ये मेरे सिस्टम से चल रहा है उसके सिस्टम से ओके मेरे पास जीएसडब्ल्यू वगैरह है एक्सोन है बस वही दो अभी आप ज्वाइन भी हो इसमें पैनलिस्ट जैसे ठीक है फिर मैं आपको प्रेजेंटर बना देता हूँ लास्ट में जब सेशन खत्म होगी फिर मैं आपको प्रेजेंटर बना देता हूँ 2-15 मतलब 4-15 से ओके ओके हाँ हाँ ठीक है अभी भी आप भेज दीजिए मैं सेशन चालू कर दिया हूँ उसमें प्ले करता हूँ आप कर सकते हैं कि बस बना के भेज दीजिए क्योंकि तो बना सिस्टम में एक ही साथ बना लीजिए ना एक ही साथ भेज दीजिए सर हाँ उत्सव को भेज दीजिए मुझे भी मार्क कर दीजिए ठीक है हाँ
ठीक है फिर हम ठीक है अभी आप तो भेज दीजिए मैं इस पे वीडियो प्ले करना चालू कर देता
Next one, let us do it smoothly. Be here. Let us do it smoothly.
we have to start now. I already started. Explain.
It started, no? It started.
I started. Himanshu will send a link to you. The videos को भी phone से you have to play it.
Systems can operate at some time, not at some time.
You have to announce, no? Link me. I have already opened the video. No, you can say that.
Not at some time.
Right?
Nothing fine. Video will be played. And then
Well, again, so this one again it will start again and asking the question so that we do create it. ठीक है और पहला स्टेप क्या होगा इसका जैसे कि to take the system go to take the system go there and Himanshu will send you the link download the reset don't start download the videos start link
अच्छा
okay now one second traffic and you can start calling one question can you send it on WhatsApp you also can leave the question verification is what there is a way of you can able to tell them what asking read the questions and you can also see the questions If the system only start playing video, you must have printed. Or you put it at different place and come back and close the session. Hello?
So I'm there.
Okay, wait, I'll check. Let me check. Yeah, I'll check. These people, I can see everyone is already joined. You cannot hear anything. Okay.
Hello?
Okay. You can
Hello,
go.
can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Edwin, I can hear you. I'm Architect Sandeep here. I'm a session chair today with you.
Okay,
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm
I,
fine.
I,
You are from currently you are in which time zone?
no, I'm based in Delhi. I'm from the EU embassy in Delhi. So
Oh, okay.
I'm in the same time zone.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah. So I think currently both of us are only have logged in. We'll wait for the Utsav to come in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Uh,
so,
Do you want to share
so
your presentation and check whether it shares properly?
yes, but to be frank, my presentation is not so much focusing on buildings because before I was in another session. It's a more general presentation about public procurement and the
That's
EU
perfectly fine.
policies. Uh,
That's perfect. We have five speakers, so I'm sure everybody will come with their own thoughts and their own contribution. So it's perfectly all right.
Okay, because I only found out today. So Utsav called me and asked me whether I could talk in this other session, but somehow I missed that this session would focus on buildings. So yeah, so I will try
Good
to share.
afternoon. Yeah. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Utsav.
Yeah.
Yes,
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Uh,
yes.
so, sir, we are having all the speakers confirmed. Only thing is, there's only one change, sir. Mr. Karthikeyan, he has spoken in the morning for an earlier session. So we will have only the first four. That is Yon Shaw, Mr. Edwin, Valen, and Mr. Vishwajeet, sir. Change. Yeah.
Fine.
Okay,
But
sir. So you need not announce.
when I'm
Yeah.
introducing them, Utsav, please bring their profile on screen.
Sure, sir. I'll do that. Yeah.
And
Could,
I'm
could,
not
could
showing any presentation. I'm just giving a keynote.
Yes, sir. You're giving a keynote. So,
so could I share my, somehow I
yes.
don't manage to share. Can you give me
Uh,
the right?
Definitely, sir. I will give you the rights and we can have a check. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I have given you the right.
Yes. So I'll try.
Yes, sir. Can you make it full screen? Yes. It's perfect, sir.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah. Works well. Perfect. So, and I will have like 15 minutes, no?
yes, sir. You'll have 15 minutes.
Okay. So now to stop it, I stop sharing. Okay. So that works.
Yes. Mr. Vishwajeet Ghosh, would you also want to check your slides before we move on to the presentation?
I can just share my screen.
Yeah, I'll make you the presenter, sir. Just give me a second. Yeah.
Okay.
Hello. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, sir. It's visible, sir. It's visible. Yeah.
Are we on time, Utsav?
Hello.
Yeah, you are audible.
Okay, sir. So do we need to test anything else, sir? Anybody want to test your presentation or how the volume is?
Nothing from my side.
Okay.
Should we remain logged in or should we log out and come back at 4:10? What do you advise?
We will be starting in 10 more minutes, sir.
So it's better to stay logged in.
Yes, sir.
Or Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Hello, Miss Yoni.
Hello.
Yeah, this is architect Sandeep Shikri here. I'm going to be a chairperson for today's session.
Okay. Do I have to stay? Am I supposed to participate in the Q&A at the end?
Yes.
Or,
Yes.
okay. So I stay all the way till the end.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Because now we have one speaker who's less. Earlier we had 5 speakers, but Mr. Karthikeyan spoke in the morning. So I just got a request from the event manager that Mr. Karthikeyan would not be there. So there will be 4 speakers, which includes you. And after that, we'll have a question answer session.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think the original Q&A was quite short, right? The timing. So I wasn't sure whether it was meant like for all the presentations. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, we'll be taking the question and answers in the end.
Okay.
After all 4 speakers speak, we'll take it in the end. So you'll have to be there till the whole program gets completed.
Okay.
So you are in a Singapore time zone, right?
Yeah. I was very worried I'll get the timing wrong. Because it's 2.5 hours. Yeah. So so this segment will end at how long is this entire segment for?
So this segment will end within 1 hour 20 minutes.
Good afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah, Utsav is there. I think Utsav will explain.
Okay.
Yes. Sir, I mean, thank you all the speakers for joining us. Before we start, Ms. Yonshaw, would you like to just check your presentation and share it over the screen?
Okay.
Wait, I'll just give you the rights for becoming a presenter.
Okay.
Yeah, I've given you the rights.
Sure.
Yes, you can make it full screen and check. Yeah.
So do I introduce myself or will you?
I will be introducing you.
Okay. So do I start? Should I include this slide or I will just go straight to the first slide?
Yeah, you can start from here. Yes.
I start from here? Okay.
Yeah.
Then I think I'll delete the our hide slide, the first slide.
Velan sir, would you also like to check the slide?
Yes. Hi, Sandeep. How are you, Sandeep?
Hi, Dr. Velan. It's such a nice thing to see you.
Very nice meeting you too. Hi, Vince. Nice talking to you too also. I will check right now my slides if you don't mind. Can I?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Please.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I've given you the rights, so you can check it.
I can. I'm sorry. I think I have to go. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir. We are able to see your screen.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, sir, for sharing. Yeah.
It's my pleasure.
So what time are we starting?
Sir, we can start in the timing was 16:10, so from we'll get started. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Sir, we are good to go. So please let me know if we can begin. Yeah.
Yes, I'm ready. Am I audible properly?
Welcome to all the participants. Yes, sir, you are audible. Am I audible to you, sir?
Yes.
And is my screen also visible to you, sir? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, sir. So a very warm welcome to all the participants and the esteemed panel which is there with us today. So first of all, before we get into the session, I would like to invite Mr. Sandeep Shikre. So architect Sandeep Shikre is the president and CEO of SSA Architects. He is an US GBC lead accredited professional and has IGBC and also chairman of IGBC in Mumbai chapter. He is a patron of the Council of Tall Building in Urban Habitat, whose head office is in Chicago, USA, and is on architects with a team of 250 young, dedicated, committed professionals. With a diverse portfolio, SSA has to its credit numerous national and international awards and is one of the leading architectural full-service firms in the country. SSA is specialized in providing highly innovative design solutions that are environmentally sustainable and is proud recipient of several IGBC Gold and Platinum rated projects, totally measuring to 2.5 million square feet, while 4.5 million square feet of green footprint is on the annual. So the stage is all set for you, sir. We welcome you, and you can please share the opening remarks for this session, and we will continue with the first speaker.
Thank you, Utsav. Thanks for giving me this good start. Good afternoon, friends. I'm quite glad to be here doing a lesson chair for a very informative session, which is on implementation of sustainability procurement in the building sector, challenges and opportunities. So we have a fantastic panel of extremely well qualified, well learned people coming from a diverse wealth of knowledge over here. I'm sure each and every participant will have lots of good take home. So we have Ms. Yoni So from Executive Director from Singapore Green Building Council. We have Mr. Edwin, who is the Councillor of Energy and Climate for the European Union. We have our own Dr. Velen, who is the Executive Board Member of IGBC and also a city head for Pan India Head for Operations of Ascenda. And we have Mr. Vishwajeet Gold, who is the Chief of Technology from Tata. We are going to have a nice burning 1.5 hours from now. Well, let me set the tone right. GreenPro is an initiative which is developed by CII, IGBC, which is headquartered in Hyderabad. It's an eco-labeling system, whereby CII has taken an initiative to develop a certification process, which is quite well thought, which is very immaculate, and which meets with all international best practices. It actually provides you a mechanism to understand cradle-to-cradle approach for each and every material that has been produced. IGBC, as many of you must be aware, that has a vision to develop 10 billion square foot of a footprint in India. So it's very essential while we are doing that initiative, the people have a smooth access to our green products. That's the reason this particular initiative was taken almost 5 years back. And today, we are very proud to say that in 5 years, there are more than 1,600 products. There are more than 110 companies and 25 categories which have been already established. So it kind of gives you a one-stop shop, a portal where any developer, a young architect, a promoter, designer, anybody who's related to the building industry can have a smooth access to understand what is the broad spectrum of green products which are available. These green products have been carefully certified, which also ensures that there is a proper recycled content, there's a proper waste management, there's a proper saving of a carbon footprint, energy efficiency. So it's really raising its bar, and it's not a static science, it's a dynamic science. It keeps on improvising year by year, month by month. So there are some materials, as you may be knowing, like you must have heard of a zero VOC paint. You must have heard of a construction block which has got a fly ash content, and so on. So these are all the parameters to identify and certify the green products. Today, we are very glad that so many multinational companies, so many corporate companies, so many institutes, and so many developers have taken an oath that they will go for 100% green products. So this awareness is catching up, and everybody is understanding the
importance of using a green product. They know exactly what are the tangible and what are the intangible benefits. They also know what is the best business that it provides them when they go for a green product purchase. Government also has developed a sustainable public procurement plan, which they call as their national action plan. So many state governments have made this as a policy, whereby they are giving an incentive for such projects which are promoting the green products. So it's a very good situation today, whereby this awareness has gone into the consumer's mind also. And I think that lot needs to be achieved. India, as all of us know, have to build another equivalent to what has already been built. So this mission is extremely critical and important now, so that not only we understand the green product, but we also understand its life cycle analysis, while it is in operation, how it will have a minimum impact on environment, and how the longevity of this green particular initiative can be continued. So there are a lot of researches which are happening internationally, a lot of researches are happening nationally, and we are going to listen to some of those stories today. So if you look at international status, Japan is one country which is really pioneering this particular strategy. There are many other countries, Singapore is also catching up there. They have really focused on green product procurement strategies. You will be also knowing some similar kind of a certifying agencies, which includes a kind of a Blue Angel. There's a Nordic EcoBell labeling system. There's a Green Seal system. So this particular certification is also popular in several other parts of the world. I feel this is the right time now to ensure that the bridge between the international excellence and the national excellence has to be gapped, and it has to resonate the overall performance of the green product in our country. I would now move on to my first panelist. We have four panelists, as I mentioned. So my first panelist is Ms. Yoni. So she is, she's an executive director of the Singapore Green Building Council, an industry organization founded on a strong public-private partnership to drive a transformation of Singapore's built environment. Yoni is a registered professional engineer. She's a civil engineer and a Green Mark accredited professional. He has extensive experience in the government sector, having been in the building and construction activity, BCA, for a decade, heading the Center for Sustainable Buildings and managing portfolio policy development, regulatory control, industry promotion, and research and development. She began her career as an engineer in the private sector with an international multidisciplinary consultancy firm. Yoni is passionate about doing corporate action in climate change and the initiative in the green product business. She is also responsible for the virtuous life cycle of action. I welcome Ms. Yoni. Please, you can begin with your presentation.
Thank you for that very kind introduction, Sandeep. Okay, let me share my video and my presentation. Okay, so a very good afternoon, everyone. Greetings from Singapore, where it is actually now close to 7 p.m. here, and it's the end of my working day, working from home. So thank you very much for this opportunity to share about the implementation of green procurement in Singapore. So before I go into the specifics of green procurement in my presentation, I thought it would be good for me to first share some background information about the Singapore building industry, so as to provide some context to what I'll be talking about later in the presentation. From the latest World Green Building Trends Smart Market Report, you can see that environmental regulations and market demands are the two top drivers for green building in Singapore. Not only that, but the response rate to these trends are also higher than the global average, and that's indicated in the gray colored bars. So this is important to note, as it probably indicates that the average level of green building awareness in Singapore is likely to be relatively high. On the issue of environmental regulations, legislation on the environmental sustainability of buildings was enacted in 2008, and this covers both new and existing buildings. Building performance requirements that are pegged at the certified level of green building is imposed on all new buildings with a gross floor area of 2,000 square meters or more, as well as any building extension, addition or retrofits. So for existing buildings, energy efficiency audits of the building's cooling systems have to be undertaken every 3 years, and information on energy consumption has to be reported on an annual basis for benchmarking purposes. But for today, I will be focusing my presentation more on market factors rather than environmental regulations. When we talk about green procurement, the aim is to achieve an overall positive outcome for a project from the perspective of the environment and from human health and well-being angle. So green procurement can be applied to the way a building developer, owner, consultant, or contractor procures goods and services for a project. And it can be expressed in many ways. So these are some examples. During the identification and preparation stage of building development, it is important for environmental aspirations to be carefully thought through and be clearly defined, as this would set the stage for more specific requirements and targets by which consultants and specialist consultants with the capability to deliver the desired outcomes can be appointed. For the procurement of building materials and products, examples of green procurement would include selecting materials that are not toxic to the environment and people, resource-efficient equipment, fixtures and fittings that help to save both energy and water, and products that are manufactured with recycled or renewable materials. The reuse and repurposing of materials is another area that could be encouraged through green procurement practices, such as turning demolition waste into recycled concrete aggregates. And if nothing from the items on the list can be applied, selecting vendors who offer take-back policies and practices can also be included as part of a green procurement strategy. So one of the easiest way to express green procurement policies is, of course, through industry certification programs, as these serve as a market mechanism to recognize and incentivize manufacturers to improve their approach to raw material sourcing, manufacturing practices, and to offer the right type of products to the market. Certification also helps to make these companies and their products readily identifiable and facilitates an efficient market for both green buyers and sellers. So in Singapore, we have the Green Mark scheme for buildings, SGBC's Singapore Green Building Services Certification Scheme for professional consultancy services, facilities management, and energy performance contracting. We also have the Singapore Green Building Products Certification Scheme for building products and materials, and all of this is underpinned by a talent pool of our green collar workforce of certified green building professionals. I believe in India you have exactly the same certifications as us. So the Green Mark Building Rating Tool, it's a voluntary scheme that was started in 2005 and is administered by the Building and Construction Authority to rate buildings that perform above the legislated environmental performance level. It has very strong support in Singapore from both the public and private sector. The public sector in particular has a very excellent program known as the Public Sector Takes the Lead in Environmental Sustainability, or we call it PESTLES for short. The private sector in Singapore also has very strong leaders in green building, as many building developers and owners have witnessed the benefits of going green. So under the public sector's PESTLES program, all new buildings with more than 5,000 square meter in air-conditioned space must achieve the Green Mark Platinum rating. All existing buildings have to achieve at least a gold rating by the end of this year, and I believe this is on track. Government offices that are tenants in private buildings also have to achieve at least a gold rating for their interior space. And all government events and functions have to be conducted only in Green Mark certified hotels and event spaces. So having said so much about the government, the private sector in Singapore has not been lagging too far behind either. Market leaders have been championing green since the early 2000s. Where green procurement is concerned, City Developments Limited, for example, has been specifying targets for some time. And this example is taken from their sustainability report from a few years back. So here's another example of a green procurement top line policy from another leading developer, Capellan, and it's expressed in a very straightforward terms. And I believe later you'll be hearing from another Singapore green champion, Capital Land, formerly known as Ascendus. So you would have noticed that the examples of green procurement actions and policy statements that I've showed you were all taken from the company's sustainability report. Yes, I must say that other than Green Mark building and product certifications, the other key development that is making companies sit up and brush up their procurement practices is the requirement for sustainability reporting that is being introduced across most financial markets and stock exchanges, including India, I believe. These are some of the sustainability reporting standards that are accepted and have been used more commonly in Singapore, particularly the Global Reporting Initiative's GRI framework and the IIRC's Integrating Reporting Framework. The GRI is quite a popular framework that is used by many companies in Singapore. And in its framework, there's a section on materials where disclosures are required for materials that are used by an organization. This includes the percentage of recycled or reclaimed content of materials used, as well as how packaging materials are treated. Such requirements for disclosures are very useful in helping companies to understand the key issues and what to address if they want to improve their sustainability performance. And as the standard also asks for quantitative numbers and the data collection methodology, companies are also forced to introduce practices that are measurable and trackable. And they will have to put in place measures to ensure that what could be at first just a policy that's displayed on the office bulletin board gets translated into real action on the ground. So other than sustainability reporting being a big booster for increasing more green procurement practices in Singapore, the other factor is the growth of ESG benchmarking initiatives and indices, awards, and accolades. Many of these finance-related benchmarking organizations are paying a lot more attention to ESG issues these days in response to the many large institutional and even small retail investors who are now calling for and even dedicating specific investment strategies to green and climate-proof investments. So I'm not sure if you are familiar with GRESB and how widely it is adopted amongst Indian real estate players. But to just give a brief introduction, what GRESB basically does is to assess and benchmark real estate assets in terms of their environmental, social, and governance performance. Last year, in 2019, 156 property companies, real estate investment trusts, funds, and developers from Asia participated in the GRESB real estate assessment out of a total of 1,005 companies globally. So what you see on the screen is an example of a GRESB assessment, in this case, an evaluation of the company's policies on environmental issues. Material sourcing and sustainable procurement are two areas that companies can choose to report on. Companies can, of course, choose to report on whatever issues that they wish, but this clear listing of issues provided by frameworks such as GRESB have proven to be very useful in providing guidance to companies on what they should be focusing on. And this has definitely been a factor in advancing green procurement in Singapore. here's another example of their framework, this time to find out more about how companies engage their supply chain and what issues do companies talk to their supply chain about. So I've actually come to the end of my short sharing, and I hope that I've given you some insights on what is driving green procurement in Singapore. But before I end, I thought I would just share some last thoughts on what I see as some of the trends going forward. So firstly, the COVID pandemic has shown us how important it is for companies to really know their entire supply chain and building up collaborative long-term relationships that are beneficial for all parties. Secondly, you cannot do everything all at once. So a good start is to just identify risk hotspots first. After that, you can look at the rest of the issues and address the less risky members of your supply chain progressively. So these days, people also want more certainty that a product is what it says it is, particularly for sustainably sourced and managed building materials. So I see that the chain of custody type of approach to green procurement will become more popular over time. Once you have put in all the effort to get your supply chain in order, you would probably want to keep them there as strategic partners for a long-term win-win relationship. So with that, that's my 15-minute quick overview of green procurement in Singapore. Thank you very much.
That was a brilliant presentation, Miss Yoni. It's quite informative. In
Thank
India,
you.
we always look at Singapore as a role model, because there are so many conditions which are, especially the climatic zone and the tropical environment is quite similar to what we have in India. Only the scale is different. I
Yeah.
really like the approach that you are having also for the existing buildings, because it's very important while we are doing something for the new greenfield development, we should also ensure that the existing buildings also gets upgraded with the proper green strategies. And there are so many wonderful government policies, they actually ensure not only the green building, but people's behavior is also green. So that was really quite enjoyable. I truly appreciate a great presentation that you have put in.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks for your time. Now move on to my next speaker, who's Mr. Edwin. Mr. Edwin, he's a counselor on energy and climate actions in European Union delegation to India. He's based in New Delhi. He's responsible for cooperation between the EU and India and in the areas of energy and climate action, including the implementation of the EU-India Clean Energy and Climate Partnership. Prior to joining EU delegation, Edwin worked for last 7 years in the Netherlands Ministry of Environment. After that, he worked 11 years in the European Parliament, during which he also worked for 5 years for the Environment Committee, which is called ENVI, and for 2.5 years in the Cabinet of Presidents, advising him inter alia on energy and climate change issues. Edwin studied environmental sciences at the Wageningen, sorry for that pronunciation, University Research in Netherlands. So it's very kind of you, Edwin, to accept this invitation and joining us. Can you please begin with your presentation?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Schicke, for this nice introduction, and thank you for having me in this panel. I don't know whether, yes, I have been given the right to share my presentation, which I will do now. So I hope you can all see this.
Yes.
Yes, please continue.
Yes, so to be frank, my presentation will be a little bit more general, so not that much focusing on buildings, because I first thought that I would talk just about green procurement in general, and give a European perspective. But as regard buildings, perhaps it's important to say that the core of my work is focusing on EU-India cooperation in the area of energy and climate change. And in that area, actually buildings is an enormously important area. As you know, 70% of the buildings that will be there in 2030 in India still need to be built. So it's very important how these buildings will be built, what materials will be used, how the isolation will be dealt with, how the waste will be dealt with. So I am indeed in this cooperation also focusing on nearly zero energy buildings, on smart readiness indicators of buildings, and we finalized the project on the implementation of the energy conservation building code for commercial buildings in 4 states. So while my presentation will be more general, I hope it will still be relevant also for the building sector, and in my daily work, this is indeed a very important sector where we try to cooperate together with the Ministry of Power and the Bureau of Energy Efficiency inter alia. Okay, perhaps I should start with saying that the whole discussion currently in the EU is centering on the green recovery, on how to recover from the COVID crisis and its economic impacts. And the EU believes that actually the fact that we now need to invest enormous amounts of money to recover from the COVID crisis, that we should do this in a green way, that we should invest in clean, digital, climate resilient infrastructure and technologies. We actually think that this is a one-in-a-lifetime opportunity, because enormous amounts of money are needed to recover, and we can use that to build back better. Before COVID, actually, the European Commission came up with a European Green Deal, which aims at making the European Union climate neutral by 2050, and also to increase the Paris Agreement targets. Actually, for 2030, they are currently 40%, but the idea is to increase the ambition up to 55% by 2030. This still needs to go through the legislative process. But the Green Deal is not only about climate change, it's also about biodiversity, pollution, and also, and that's very central, about the circular economy. The European Union came up with a circular economy action plan, which defines 35 actions along the entire life cycle of products, to make products more sustainable, and also, and that's why I'm mentioning it, to empower consumers and public buyers. It's also focusing on the value chains, on less waste, on make circularity work for people, regions, and cities. But I want to mention it because a very important element is to empower consumers and public buyers. I want to go to the next slide, but somehow, yeah. So in order to empower our European consumers and public buyers, we want to revise the consumer law, and in which it is important that the consumers receive trustworthy and relevant information on products. They also would receive the right to get products repaired. And also, companies should ensure that in their environmental claims, they use product and organization environmental footprint methods. The EU Eco Label, on which I will talk more, it needs to include more systematically the durability, recyclability, and recycled content. Perhaps here a very important figure. Again, when we talk about recovering from COVID, also this is a very important figure. The public authorities' purchasing power in Europe represents 14% of the EU GDP. So it's very important to use this purchasing power to indeed have a green recovery. Please allow me to say a little bit more about the EU Eco Label. Again, this is not, it is relevant for buildings, but for buildings, actually, we have the energy performance certificates. But I think talking about the EU Eco Label, it gives some general messages that are important for green procurement. The EU Eco Label is the official European Eco Label, and it's managed by the European Commission and by the member state competent bodies. As you probably know, the European Union consists of 27 larger and smaller member states, each with their own competent bodies. So I'm talking about countries like Germany, Spain, Italy, France, but also smaller countries like my own country, Netherlands, Denmark, Greece, Bulgaria. So it's a very diverse group of countries. So the Eco Label is a voluntary labeling scheme which aims at promoting goods and services with reduced environmental impact. It's established in a European law stemming from 1992, and it has been revised twice. So the EU Eco Label contributes to the circular economy, which is central, one of the central elements of the European Green Deal. So what does this circular economy mean? It means that you look at the production of the product. So how you can design it in a way so that it's durable, easy to dismantle, easy to repair, easy to reuse, easily to recycle, and also you can limit packaging. I think the same is true for the building sector. Also, when you design your building, you can already take into account all the different elements, also deal with all the different steps in the life cycle of a building. So then the consumption, it deals with the consumption. So you want to ensure that the consumers make conscious choices about the environmental impact of your product. Then the part of the circular economy is the waste management. So you really want to try to reduce the waste, and you want to ensure that the recycling results in high quality resources that then can be reused in the production. So you want to indeed increase a circular economy. One of the specific areas when you talk about circular economy is the area of plastics, which is certainly a high political priority for the European Union. Very quickly, some criteria. So to get the EU Eco Label criteria, you need to be among the best products available on the community market, so the 10 to 20% best products. This needs to be based on a scientific basis, looking at the most significant environmental impacts. The label looks also at health and safety aspects, social and ethical aspects. It needs to reduce, as far as possible, tests on animals, and hazardous substances needs to be substituted with safer ones. Perhaps also important, and that's perhaps also again important for the building sector, the label takes into consideration the views of all interested parties involved in the consultation process. Some figures about the Eco Label. So it deals with 24 product and service groups. And in total, there are like more than 70,000 different products and services available on the European market. And currently, we're also working on having an Eco Label for financial products. So this Eco Label is not only important for the consumer, it's also important, we believe, for the applicants, so for the European industry. It certifies that your product is among the most environmentally friendly in its category. It increases the visibility of your product on the market among competitors. It's a logo that is recognized throughout Europe by millions of EU consumers. Actually, the European market, it's a single market. It's the biggest market in the world. It offers marketing opportunities, and also, and that's the last bullet, it features easier access to green public procurement. So if you have this label, there will be a higher chance that your product will be used by government authorities. Perhaps it's good to mention that the EU eco label also allows the recognition on the EU market of products with a high environmental performance, even if they are produced outside of the European Union. So what then needs to be done is this product needs to be submitted to a competent body in one of the member states or one of the countries of the European Union. And then if that country decides that the product can have the eco label, then it has access to so then this eco label is valid for the whole of the European markets. So these were just some more details on the eco label. Now I go back to the general EU green public procurement policy. As I said, the EU believes that this actually is key in promoting a transition towards a circular economy. And we believe that eco-labels are essential tools in this green public procurement. Since 2008, the green public procurement policy has been mainly voluntary, actually with exceptions like in the car industry and energy consuming products and also public buildings. But in the coming years, there will be a tendency to move more towards mandatory green public procurement policy and sectoral legislation. This slide is perhaps the most important slide also for the building sector, because if you deal with green public procurement, then one of the first things you really need is clear, verifiable, justifiable, and ambitious environmental criteria. So you want to make sure that you buy the right products and services, that there is no greenwashing. At the same time, you need to prevent that this criteria are causing a market distortion and result in problems for EU-wide competition. As I said, the European Union is one single market, and you want to avoid that these criteria are used to try to keep out products from other EU member states. So having common criteria is extremely important, and not only because you avoid distortion of the single market, but also you reduce considerably the administrative burden for the economic operators and also for the public administrations, in fact, that are implementing the green public procurement. So that's why the Commission has developed more than 20 common green public procurement criteria for 20 sectors, including also the office building sector. There are two levels of criteria. There are the more general criteria that focus on the key environmental impacts, and these, to meet these criteria, you require minimum additional verification effort or cost increase. And you have the criteria that aim at purchasing the best environmental products available on the market. And they would require additional verification efforts, and they can also result in a slight increase of the costs. The European Commission on its website provides all kinds of support tools for public procurements, which might also be interesting for authorities outside of the European Union, including also an handbook on buying green, with practical examples drawn from contracting authorities across the EU member states. Actually, this exchange of good practices, as we are also doing today in this webinar, is considered by the EU and by the EU member states. It's one of the key tools to strengthen green public procurement. So explaining to each other how we do things and learning from each other's best practices is considered a very valuable tool. Just to mention very quickly some green procurement examples, like in the city of Barcelona in Spain, where they adopted mandatory green criteria for vehicles, for electricity, for food, and for catering services. Or in Ghent, in the city of Ghent in Belgium, where the procurement team works directly with the mayor's office and where they integrate sustainability elements into all stages of a purchase. Or in Vienna, the capital of Austria, where they managed through public procurement to save 1.5 million euros per year due to modern facility management and energy efficient appliances, and also a reduction of 15,000 tons of CO2 per year. There are other examples in Denmark, in the UK, in the Netherlands, in Italy, and in Bulgaria. So let me quickly move to some things that we do in the area of green procurement in India. It's important to mention the Switch Asia project, which is a project aiming at promoting sustainable consumption and production, and it's a regional project working on sustainable consumption and production in 24 countries. It's a project of 36 million euros for the period 2007 to 2020, and actually we recently started with one of the projects in India. It was a demand from the government of India to be supported on sustainable public procurement at Indian railways. And so under this project, two sustainable public procurement experts will work on a scoping study on the current status of SPP policies. There will be workshops and capacity building and the development of a sustainable procurement action plan. The capacity building and the awareness raising includes a Center of Excellence on Sustainable Procurement in the National Academy for Indian Railways. The second and the last project I would like to address, a project that we do in India, it's actually something that was also addressed at the EU-India summit that took place at the highest level on the 15th of July. One of the deliverables of this EU-India summit was a joint declaration on resource efficiency and circular economy. And this builds on the already existing EU resource efficiency initiative, which is one of our very important areas of our EU-India cooperation. And we contributed to the national strategy on resource efficiency, and also on several sectoral resource efficiency strategies and state resource efficiency strategies. As regards the national strategy on resource efficiency, which was released by Niti Aayog and the EU delegation in November 2017, it's important to mention that the medium-term action plan includes sustainable public procurement as an important tool for the promotion of resource efficiency. Another strategy, I also said we also worked on sectoral strategies, is the strategy on resource efficiency in the construction and demolition sector. And also this strategy includes sustainable public procurement as an important tool for promoting the use of products made out of construction and demolition waste. And urban bodies, local bodies like the urban local bodies from Ahmedabad and Delhi have issued guidelines to their government departments for the use of construction and demolition products. this was my presentation. I hope it was useful also in this section, and thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edwin. That was quite elaborate and quite informative. And of course, everyone knows European market is the largest market in the globe. And it was quite impressive to see you have more than 1,500 licenses and more than 70,000 products. That's really something. So there will be a lot of questions that will be coming in your own way. I also have a couple of questions, but I would now quickly like to move on to our next panelist. Our next panelist is Dr. Wellen. Dr. Wellen is, I really don't need to introduce him. Many of us know him very, very well. He was actually chairing our education rating system. He's also our executive board member at IGBC. And he's currently working as a city head, Chennai operations, and a pan-India head for city management at Ascendas. Ascendas, as all of us we know, is one of the very renowned, reputed multinational organization from Singapore, and it's involved in IT and industrial park establishments. Earlier, he was with Tata Realty Infrastructure Limited, TRIL, as a CEO, and a lot of flagship projects have been done there under his leadership, which of course includes the Chennai, the biggest happening project of India. He has graduated in civil and structural engineering with post-graduation in business administration. Wow, what a combination. An engineer with business administration, a very, very important combination, as well as ecology and environment, further to add to it. Further, he did PhD degree in civil engineering, and for the research work, mainly focused on the area which is based for the need of the hour today, which is sustainable design of green buildings. Right thing at the right time. Dr. Wellen has more than 30 years of a corporate experience, and he has worked with a lot of blue chip companies, which includes Iker Motors, Color Came, CBRE, and currently with Ascendas. So I welcome Dr. Wellen. All of us are very eager to hear you. Please move ahead with your presentation.
Thank you, Sandeep. Really great of you for introducing. Am I audible?
Yes, you are very much audible.
Thank you very much. And I'm just having a presentation for you, and I'm just sharing my screen now. Just bear with me. Is the screen visible? Is the presentation visible? Presentation?
Not yet, sir. You can use the third option from below, sir, the share option.
Yeah, I'm just doing it. Oh, sorry about it. Is it okay?
Yes.
Yes, you can make it full screen.
Okay, my friends, this is a really great opportunity that I can speak sometime about our experience in that as a developer point of view. Of course, we have listened to and Edwin on the various country perspective and their experience in various regulatory and certification point of view. Now, I'm just going to talk about a little bit on the developer point of view, how this sustainable procurement is critical. And in my view, there are three factors that impacts this building sector. One is that, when you look at it, when you want to develop about 10 years back or so, in India, it used to be very limited buildings, as Sandeep was mentioning. Now that we are in aggressive mode of getting into green building construction, we are leading in this particular green building development in the country, in the at least the Asian level. So we are very focused. The developers in India, I'm just talking most of the developers. I can say any development today, it's going to happen in terms of commercial or large complexes. It is going with the green mode. That awareness has come in very much with respect to the importance of the sustainable development. If you look at, there are three areas I can say which contributes that sustainability in a building. One is the design itself. Of course, Sandeep kind of some veterans are there, that systems, they are taking care of the design perspective. But there is another aspect also, operational aspect, where we have to choose a life cycle based equipment. That is another part. But one of the intermediary is that at the execution front. The execution front is where I feel the materials are coming in. If you look at that, the material is what is very crucial when you are looking at a kind of green development. If you look at this slide, of course, sorry about it. They see when you are looking at the product, green products, what is that come to our mind is that the product is reviewed with respect to health and environment impacts. That is how the materials are looked at. But if you look at that, this particular slide, I'm going to touch this slide first. There are two different factors here. One is embodied carbon and operational carbon. If you look at that, which is contributing to that CO2 emission, if you look at it, the majority of it, can you guess where it is coming from? It is predominantly coming from the development phase, the construction phase. The operational phase is very, very minimal. Even if those kind of impacts, even if it is so, those things are taken care by various method of operation, energy efficient installations, VFDs, EC motors, EC fans. So many factors are there in operational front. We could be able to manage that carbon impact. But in the construction area is where we are finding it that embodied carbon impact is heavy. If you look at one of the reports which I studied, the McKinsey report, which says very specifically in next 20, 25, 30 years, if you look at it, that building materials are the contributors of a CO2 emission in that building sector, whereas only 10% is considered to be the building operational side of the impact. Where it is that now we have to focus, it is a clear, distinctly shown when you look at this material sector, materials component, building material component, where you focus, which is the cement, which is the steel, which is the timber, which is that material we use, is having the minimal the impact for that embodied carbon that will protect this environment. So this is the factor with which I'm going back now. So when you're looking at any kind of a building, so first thing is you have to look at it, life cycle cost, low embodied carbon kind of material focus, occupants safe environment, occupants wellness. These are the four areas today every developer is looking at it. When I come back to the earlier one, what I said, low embodied carbon, which also I told you the major contributor to the CO2 emissions. So what is that the developers are doing today is that the focus on green products. What is that green product I refer to here is that it should have high efficiency of heating, ventilation, air conditioning system. It has to be low emission windows and daylighting technologies, water saving, water efficient fixtures, fire safety system and intelligent building systems and materials, affordable green building material, which are also supposed to be available for the developers. So if these are few things I highlighted here, there are various other things which are there as a green material and products today in the market. But predominantly, if you look at these are the various things other than the theoretical systems, electrical bulbs, lighting, all those things actually. So what we look at as a developer, we have to use this green materials, green products in order to bring what? In order to bring the comfort for that safe environment, occupants wellness and low embodied carbon usage. By means of using this kind of products, green certified products, low embodied carbon related materials in construction phase area, construction stage, we are already done up with most of these things are taken care. But if you look at what is that is impacting actually is that developers are focusing, are supposed to focus, I can put it like this, predominantly capital and companies, if you look at it, as Steven was mentioning, we have very focused approach. Any new development when we go, there are two components which are really considered as a serious matters. One, the financial feasibility. The other one is environmental feasibility. If you don't fulfill environment, social, governance point of view, even if it is economically or commercially very successful, the capital land will not go for such development. That is a policy. That's a principle with which that organization is moving ahead. If you look at many of the organized, even I was associated with the Tata Center, we are also focused completely. Sustainability is one of the critical factors in our DNA. When you are looking at that way, the other developers, you can say in India, 90% of the developers, I can say everybody today are focusing on sustainable development on these two factors. One is in the construction phase and on the operational phase. If you look at it, what is that we are looking at it? Minimizing the non-renewable building materials like sand, stone, all those things we want to minimize the consumption. And also we have to ensure the renewable, reusable timber and recycling of water. This is another factor we look at it. Minimizing building energy requirement. See, this is where one of the critical factors are coming. It includes that use of renewable energy. And next one is that what very interesting, closing the material energy loops. What it means, once the life cycle is over the building, the materials after demolition, how to recycle and reuse is what is also critically evaluated at this point of time by the various developers. And also one of the things, maximum job creation potential of building material production, local, this is local economy. Whatever we are looking at it, the local people, local material usage and the employment of those people to produce that material used for construction. What is that it is getting conveyed here? The developers are more focused today on green products, green materials. And is it, the question was in the session, I was asking, looking at the topic, opportunities and challenges. In like in Singapore, and we are all aware, UK, we are all aware, in other countries, we are all aware, these are all available in abundant informations actually. Likewise, few years back, it was something like we used to look for it. We used to talk to people and all. Today, what is it that advantage of GreenPro, this IGBC, GreenPro certified, this one, it provides a complete information of all that certified products and materials available today. And it gives us the reach. It gives us lots of opportunities for us to reach that particular material availability and all those things. Thereby, you are taking care of this embodied carbon issue, the use of green material, green products, etc., etc. So what is that it is helping us? If you look at this slide, I'm just using that little bit of propagation of this GreenPro, little bit. See, they are not only just like that looking at the raw material or that manufacturing process. They are taking the entire cycle, life cycle of this product actually. They do that waste management, they do the life cycle analysis, product, everything they do in total, which helps actually that that developers to close your eyes and choose the materials. The only thing actually is that about Sandeep was mentioning 4,000 odd products certified and 110 companies are there in the list of the GreenPro, and this is going to make a difference in Indian context. Even though we are in the emerging phase, we are in the development. If you look at it in Indian context, every year on the commercial side, if you look at it, about 60 to 65 million square feet of developments are happening every year. In fact, if you look at it as Edwin was mentioning actually, how much you may be creating the pollution, how much you may be having a lot of impact. All those things with this sustainable focus by IGBC and the GreenPro, the material focus, these things or impacts are completely minimized. We cannot eradicate, of course, that we will know. We cannot completely stop. But the minimizing the impact is what that focus with which the GreenPro is helping actually. So on those things, all those things are fine. But what is that we have to now look at it? The developers are looking at it as an interesting thing is that eco-labeling of products is important. Then standards and benchmarks for the labeling is also available. That life cycle assessment is also very critical. Then only you can trust. See, seeing is believing or experiencing is believing, right? When you experience only, you will be able to talk about it or use it for our other products, other projects. In such a way, this GreenPro, the various products of 4,000 plus or something like that, all those things are proven. So it gives us the comfort for the developers to use this as these are the requirements, for us actually as a developer. So it is automatically provided by the GreenPro that helps in going for developing sustainable buildings or the properties. If you consolidate today in India, we have about 600 million square feet of existing buildings, commercial buildings alone. And year on year, we are adding up 50 to 60, 60 to 65 million square feet. And look at the volume of requirement of green products and the technology which are important to cater to that kind of volume. there is always a high level of potential even for the new startups or the new industries to be developed in the country. This GreenPro will, I hope, I'm certainly sure, maybe this will be a question to that GreenPro system, that will it be taking to that kind of voluminous certification capability. Of course, the answer will be yes. I'm sure about it. But the going forward, the way it is looking like, not only capital, and as Venu was mentioning, actually, capital is Asia's leading developer in terms of real estate. We have the principle of all our developments, not only in India, but across all locations. We will be using 100% of the green products. It will be at least a gold level or platinum level of certified premises of that particular standard. Only the green, the sustainability focus is there in companies of like ours, actually. So with that, a summary statement, what I want to make it, the developers look at reducing this embodied carbon in construction phase, how it is possible. Use of appropriate green products, green materials will only enhance this particular opportunity. Otherwise, how it is possible? We cannot do miracle, right? Only use of right product, green materials, only it is going to help us. That is one of the principles. Operational phase, of course, various measures as certified, as provided by the IGBC. We have life cycle costing processes, wellness approach, or various approaches that anyway helps as on the operational phase, putting together both the construction phase as well as that operational phase, reducing the impact to the environment, also providing the very comfortable working environment by means of right products, right interior materials. All these things will provide the comfort for the working professionals inside the office or living the people living inside the buildings. On that basis, the developers, depending on much on these green products, and IGBC more towards IGBC, come up with more and more of certified products, which will help the developer industry, and we will be thankful for that. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and IGBC's efforts in building this GreenPro in India is going to be definitely helpful. Thank you very much, Sandeep. Thank you very much, the team, CII.
Thank you, Doctor. That was very eloquently explained, and very important. The design phase, the construction phase, and the operational phase. One needs to be careful at every phase. One interesting thing that I like that you said about the wellness and the health and safety. I'm going to ask you those questions. How do you also see those aspects in a GreenPro when we come to a question answers? Because I think that is something which is very important. Besides looking at green from energy conservation, water conservation, and an environmental impact, it's also important to see how it has an impact on the people's productivity and a better efficiencies and a better health. That's quite interesting that I saw it in your presentation. Very well said, and we are very proud of you and Capital Land for taking an oath to ensure that all your projects will be green, and not only green, gold and platinum, and also you will touch only green products. That's really amazing. That has set the tone right, and that will be kind of an inspiration to all the upcoming emerging businesses, developers, and promoters. So we truly appreciate and admire all of this initiation. I will now move on to the final panelist for today. Equally talented, comes with the wealth of knowledge in steel and mill processes. He is Mr. Vishwajeet Gold. He's a Chief of Technology Products for Tata Steel Limited. He completed his engineering in metallurgy, very interesting discipline, in 1989. He has a total experience of 31 years in Tata Steel, has a diverse exposure starting from iron making to steel making and rolling areas. He has been a key member of the Tata Operational Performance Initiative in the steel and mill areas of Tata Steel for improving resource efficiencies. He has been in charge of a process technology and product quality in steel and mills area for long products and wire drawing in Tata Steel Wire Division as a Chief of Technology. He has worked for the production units in Tata Steel in Thailand in the area of product technology and quality assurance. At present, he is heading the technology development in the products and process for long and flat products areas as a Chief of Technology. He has been awarded as a Young Metallurgist of the Year by the Ministry of Steel in 2000, and he's been authored many national and international publications in this particular area of steel and mill. So I welcome Mr. Vishwajeet Ghosh, and we all look forward to see your presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shakre. To all ladies and gentlemen, good evening. And for joining us from Europe, I believe it's a good afternoon. Let me share my screen.
Yeah, your screen is sharing, but your voice is little intermittent. I would advise you to come closer to the screen because your voice is not very
Yeah.
clearly audible.
Is it now better?
Yes, much better. And screen is visible.
Okay.
You can go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So presentation is about implementation of sustainable procurement in the building sector, which is the perspective from Tata Steel, manufacturer of steel. So I'll have a brief touch about Tata Steel, and then I'll get on to buildings and sustainability, need for sustainable procurement, steel industry and sustainability, and Tata Steel's initiatives towards product sustainability. Brief introduction about Tata Steel. Although we are a very reputed and well-known organization, it doesn't need much introduction in India. We are the 11th largest steel producer in the world, with a crude steel capacity of some 33 million tons per year. On the right-hand side, you can see some of the important products that we make. We make a very diverse portfolio ranging from longs, flats, for construction and automotive. At the bottom, these are some of the key brands that are there for steel. In India, we have been the pioneers for introducing brands in steel. Some of these brands like Tata Tiscon Super Ductile or SD, Tiscon Ready Build, Nestin, some of these are very much in line with construction and very much in line with sustainable products, which I'll discuss towards the later part of my presentation. The whole entire consciousness and the effort starts from the climate agreement, which aims to limit the rising global temperatures to less than by 2050. In this, building and constructions play a very important role. Things account for about 40% of the global carbon emissions and has a very important role to play. Sustainability of buildings is primarily driven by the adoption of green building frameworks globally and has been touched upon by other speakers as well. The existing frameworks cover almost all aspects of sustainability, but it is the emissions from the materials and the operational phase that contributes to the carbon emissions of the buildings. Mainly, as Dr. Zellan also pointed out, mainly the building materials contribute the most, which is called the embodied carbon, and a little bit from the operational phase as well. The World Green Building Council expects that by 2030, all new buildings to have zero operational carbon and 40% reduction in embodied carbon. It also expects by 2050, all new buildings to have zero embodied carbon as well, while existing buildings to have zero operational carbon. These are very stiff targets, very ambitious targets, and there is a lot of work which is going on towards achieving these targets. And the sustainability of buildings, the focus on life cycle is in the procurement of sustainable building materials is very important. Carbon emissions are released not only during the operational life, but more in the manufacturing, transportation, construction, and end of life phase of all the built assets. This is nothing but the embodied carbon, and it accounts for roughly around 11% of the building's emissions. Primarily comes from steel, cement, and glass. Much of it is from steel, cement, and glass. The Energy Transition Commission report suggests that policymakers to create initial demand for low carbon construction materials and construction industry to commit to green buildings, which are defined as low operational and embedded carbon emissions materials. Therefore, the sustainable procurement has to promote materials with lower carbon footprint, materials with transparent environmental disclosures, eco-labeled materials, and energy-efficient products. So, with rising regulations and the need for sustainable procurement will become the norm for tomorrow. It will be absolutely necessary and important. Now, coming to the industry, Steel forms one of the very basic materials in the construction sector. The steel rebars, which are used for reinforcement of cement concrete, is a major component of any construction. Then there are doors, windows, roofing sheets, prefab materials, etc. And these are all parts of the building construction. And steel happens to be the most recycled material in the world. At the same time, it must be noted that steel manufacturing is quite a CO2 intensive manufacturing process. On an average, about 1.85 to 2 tons of CO2 are emitted for every ton of steel produced, and the industry generates roughly between 7 to 9% of direct carbon emissions from the global use of fossil fuel. However, the good part is that steel is 100% recyclable. It can be recycled any number of times. Any quality or any grade of steel can be melted and recycled into any other grade of steel without any quality loss whatsoever. It has also a very long service life, typically getting into decades and maybe half a century, sometimes even a century. And ultimately, at the end of the cycle, much of the steel comes back to the remanufacture or reuse in the steel sector, manufacturing sector. Higher grades of steel, higher grades meaning higher strength levels, comes with lighter weight and more or less the same manufacturing carbon footprint. Now, this point is a little important, so I'll explain a little more. When we manufacture higher strength levels of steel, it does not mean that the CO2 emissions increase. The CO2 emissions are more or less fixed. These are fixed by the process route, and as long as the process route doesn't change, the higher strength grades do not necessarily mean higher CO2 footprint. They will have the same CO2 footprint, but they will enable lightweighting of structures, lightweighting of construction. They will mean saving in steel and will offer extended life, will save resources because they will save steel or they will save cement or concrete, and they will reduce environmental impacts at the use phase. Is a little technical. I will explain, I think, one by one or line by line. There are some challenges with respect to sustainability in steel, but there are also. The most important challenge is how to reduce CO2 emissions in manufacturing. One, as I've explained earlier, that steel can be recycled very well and infinite number of times. So there are two broad methods of manufacture of steel. One, of course, is by using the virgin raw materials, so the iron ores and the coke and the sinter and iron making, and followed by steel making and all. The other method is through by recycling of steel scrap, which is through the EAF route. So these are the two broad methods. The balance in terms of the virgin route is about 70%, and the scrap route is about 30%. In case of India, it is a little different. The scrap route in India is about 50% of the total steel manufacturing, 55% of the total steel manufacturing, whereas the virgin route accounts for about 45%. Now, when the scrap route is used, the CO2 emissions will come down drastically. If instead of a 2-ton CO2 per ton of steel, it will become typically 0.5 or 0.6 ton of CO2 per ton of steel, because a lot of the earlier process of iron making and coke making and all that will get bypassed. So there is a lot of efforts towards encouraging this scrap-based manufacturing. However, the demand of steel is such that not everything can be met by scrap-based manufacturing only. Some amount of virgin route of manufacturing has to be there and will be there. In the virgin route, there are by other technologies. There is a lot of research which is going on to reduce the CO2 footprint. There is all sorts of technologies are being driven forward in a feverish pitch. By 2030 or sometime around that, we expect that some breakthrough technologies may come, which would drastically reduce the CO2 emission in the virgin route also. The other challenge is how to be resource efficient in the manufacturing of steel. One approach is how to promote 100% utilization of byproducts. In the manufacturing of steel, there are various byproducts, most of which are used up in the steel within the steel circuit itself. But some of the byproducts are utilized in other industries like cements, paints, pigments, chemicals, etc. Typically, in a good steel manufacturing ecosystem, roughly 95% of the byproducts get utilized, leaving around 3 to 5% as waste. Even the efforts are underway even to reduce that and become 100% utilization of byproducts. Also, the other approach is to eliminate process steps. There are technologies available which allow us to eliminate certain process steps, which help us to reduce the CO2 emissions or the energy usage. The third approach, of course, is to use process models. Most manufacturers of any repute would have a host of process models which help the manufacturers to keep the process lean and thin in terms of resource usage and reduce wastages. Third challenge is how to have high strength steel and high ductility. Typically, theoretically, these are two contradictory things. When we go for higher strength, the ductility or the flexibility of steel suffers or gets a little adversely impacted. But the challenge is how to maintain the ductility at the same level when the strength goes up, or even increase the ductility. Such development of high strength steels for light weighting of structures have been done continuously since the last 1 or 2 decades. Tata Steel has been at the forefront of such developments. We have developed higher strength, higher yield strength level of steels for the reinforcement of cement concrete. Typically, if we replace, for example, Fe 600, Fe 500 level steel with Fe 600, 500, 600 in this case means the yield strength of steel in megapascal. So if we replace Fe 500 by Fe 600, there is a saving in steel by to the tune of about 12 to 13%. The other way of looking at it is if the reinforcement amount of reinforcement is making the same, then there may be a commensurate saving in concrete by about 8%. Now, steel is still recyclable. Cement concrete is not recyclable. The other important area to understand or to appreciate is the area of seismic resistance, because there is a lot of area in India and also across the world which comes under seismic zones, and these zones need high strength and high ductility steels for energy absorption, this in turn improves the longevity of buildings and the structures. So such steels have been developed by Tata Steel and continuously gets developed by Tata Steel. Fourth, an important area is corrosion resistance of steels, because these are also for longevity of structures and increasing the life cycle of structures. Tata Steel has been developing corrosion resistance along coastline in India, and the coastal regions need this type of steel. This can be approached by two ways. One is by increasing the inherent corrosion resistance of steels by changing the chemical composition. The other approach is to have coatings to increase the longevity of essentially the steel structures or steel rebars in the coastal regions. Fourth, how to have more efficient usage of steel at sites, how to reduce wastage at sites. Typically, what happens is steel rebars, particularly, are manufactured and supplied to sites at fixed lengths. In India, the popular length is 12 meters, but in the sites, these are all cut and bend. And if that cut and bend activity is done at the sites, then there is typically a lot of wastage. So what manufacturers like Tata Steel have done is they have got into this cut and bend rebars or fabricated steel rebars, where Tata Steel or the manufacturer does the cut and bend, so that they get the aggregation benefits, and they supply the ready to use cut and bend steel in the at the construction sites, so that the wastage at sites is kept to a minimum. There are other things like prefabricated structures or welded wire mesh, which also all aim at reducing the wastage of steel at site. The last point, which is also important, is the alignment of various steel and construction standards. While this sounds a little simple, but because typically what happens is in the standards organizations, the, the standards for steel and the standards for construction are managed by different wings, and many a times what happens is the construction standards are not aligned. The steel standard, for example, is sometimes not aligned to the building codes or the building standards. So there is a continuous work with the standards bodies, for example, the Bureau of Indian Standards, to keep the two standards well aligned, and also to introduce best practices and develop new steel standards to keep the standards current with the best and the best, so that the consumers get the best steel. You can see on the left hand side, these are the various products that construction which Tata Steel produces. Main is Tata Steel TMT rebar, the brand, and Tiscon Super Ductile and Tiscon, various brands of Tiscon, and also the. Then there are steel doors, windows, steel hollow sections, and roof sheets. Next, steam prefabricated construction solutions. These are the various products, and almost all of them uh, are targeted towards sustainability. The main facts are that higher strength offers lighting steel saving and high ductility for seismic resistance. Reduction at construction site. Steel doors, windows, and hollow sections are very easily recyclable and are GreenPro certified. Nest in construction solution, which also is very much comparatively lesser carbon footprint and recyclable and easy to disassemble. The key initiatives that Tata Steel has been undertaking and recently is continuing for its vendors and supply partners on February 2020 to promote sustainability among key stakeholders of our supply chain. Tata Steel is very actively developing high-strength rebars, various climatic and geographic conditions across the world, especially in India. Also, Tata Steel has been collaborating very actively and closely with GBC to develop GreenPro certification for steel rebars used for concrete reinforcement. Typically, rebars are not yet eco-labeled, whereas there are various construction components which are eco-labeled. Steel rebars, being a very major component, cannot be left out. So the GreenPro framework is under development with CII GBC, and I believe by the end of this year, this work will get concluded, so that various applicants can get their rebars eco-labeled, and consumers can understand which are the rebar products which are better for the sustainability point of view. I share. Thank you very much to everyone for the patient hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vishwajeet. As all of us we know, steel is one of the most important and integral part of our construction industry, and we are quite proud and fascinated to see what initiative Tata Steel is taking, and I think that's a need of an hour. So I truly admire contribution of all the panelists here. Each one of you have given a very wonderful insights about your strengths, and I'm sure all the viewers have got a lot of informative and a good take home. We have just 10 to 12 minutes for question answers. So I'll be quickly picking up the questions and asking each one of you one question. And of course, there are a lot of other questions which we'll try and post it to you on your email. And if you can spend some time and answer those, it will be great. So they'll remain in our library. So once again, I think we had a diverse knowledge interaction today, and this session is quite knowledge wealthy, quite knowledge wealthy. I personally enjoyed it a lot from an architect's perspective. So if I could request uh, Yoni and Edwig to on your camera so that viewers can see you while you are answering the questions. Dr. Velan is already seen on video, and also Mr. Vishwajeet. So thank you very much. So uh, uh, the question answer is going to be only for 10-12 minutes, to be fair with Yoni, because it's a late evening for her and she's been very kind enough to be with us. So first question is with you. You have been with BCA and I have interacted with BCA. They have been doing fantastic, phenomenal, fantastic job. There's also one question by one of the viewer here called Anup Vijayan. He's asking, while you're talking about promotion of green product, is there any mechanism to catch young youth and create a self-employment, create a kind of an awareness in them so that they become self-employed, there is job creation, and we create a future where, this product also can become more viral, not only in the big scale industries, but it also becomes more uh, popular in small scale industries. So my question to you is, the Singapore Green Building Council taking any efforts uh, for the students and for the academicians and in the education of civil engineering and architectural and building allied education patterns? If you could elaborate on that, that will be great. This
Yep.
question is for
Yeah.
yes.
Thanks for that question. There is quite a bit of career promotion initiatives in Singapore to get the youth to join the built environment sector. But for green specifically, we actually have a Green Schools initiative. We do quite a bit of talks to schools, and we have some educational slides and videos and all that about green buildings, and we share that with the schools. So I think that is probably quite helpful in helping the young to understand more about green buildings. The interesting thing in Singapore is that we actually find that there's a growth of green activists, among the young. I'm not so sure whether you see the same thing in India. And I find that these probably young adults, university or at the polytechnics, they are maybe even more informed than us about a lot of the climate issues. So I think that is a really, really good development for us. Yep. Thanks for your question.
Yes, yes. In fact, the reason I asked you a question because BCA conducts a green students competition, and they have come to India to promote the Indian educational colleges participation. And I was quite overwhelmed with their initiative. And I am student chapter convener, so we gave almost 10 to 12 entries, and it gives me a lot of pride that our students won one of the prize over there. So that is something that was really nice to see, to catch them young. And also I've seen in international forums in our field, in architecture field, in the city BUH and various fields, there is a good amount of participation from Singapore architectural fraternity. So there's something that must be definitely happening right there so that the students are taking part in green initiative. Thanks for your explanation. Next question is for Mr. Edwin. Of course, you explain what EU is doing and the overwhelming scale of EU, where 70,000 products and 1,556 licenses, and you are in India to promote the kind of the implementation. So, do you have any quick and a brief message as to how India, it's a need of India today that we have to exponentially widen our resources. And as Dr. Velan said, yes, we'll do it. But is there any mechanism that we need to do it? We have time at our hand. So I think that we would advise to scale up the mechanism for green rating system certification, also for the manufacturers and the entire allied industry to how do they accelerate the whole process? There is, of course, a lot of talent here, but how do we enhance it at a very less time? Any advice on that one? You are muted, Mr. Edwin.
Apologies. Thank you for that question. I think there are several key elements. One of it, I think, is really exchanging good practices between the EU and India. We learning from processes in India, and India learning from processes in the EU, and then looking at the complete life cycle of the building sector. And actually in Europe, the building sector is slightly at a different stage. In our legislation is now focusing much more on the renovation of buildings, because we have an aging building sector, and we need to make sure that this building sector becomes more energy efficient, which is quite a challenge if you have old buildings. In India, as you know better than I do, it's all about new buildings. So one focus area that we have is also nearly zero energy buildings, where you look indeed at the complete life cycle, where you try to make your buildings as energy efficient as possible, and then the remaining energy that you still need, you try to produce it through renewable energy. So by doing so, you get a climate neutral building. Perhaps the most important area, because that's always, if you talk about sustainable buildings, often there are good economic reasons to make your building sustainable. At some point you will earn the money back, but at the moment of investment, quite often, as has also been discussed, it is more about the short-term financial interest. In our cooperation, we are also very much looking at how to mobilize investments, how to get cheap money to invest in the building sector. So how can international finances contribute to these investments? So that's also a very important area. But perhaps so two more things, and then I stop. This labeling and certification, I think it's a very important area, because you want to make sure that if you invest in green sustainable buildings, that's your products and everything, that they are indeed the top of the bill technology, and that they do indeed reduce the impacts that you want to reduce. So also there we can cooperate a lot. And then about youth, I just want to mention that also in our EU-India cooperation, the youth is very important. In Europe, it's actually the youth bringing climate change and biodiversity on the top of the agenda. And so we are organizing a youth climate conclave together with the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change, and together with TERI and with GIZ India. So in our cooperation also, the role of the youth is very important. Thank you. Thank you for this question.
Sounds very good. I think you have very appropriately explained. You see, in India, energy conservation is of course important, but Indian by nature are quite conservative in terms of using energy. For us, the battle is water and indoor environmental quality, because we are thickly populated, having more than 70% of our population in a challenging situation. You know, so like our guru, Dr. Jain was saying, that we have to be very careful about the indoor environmental quality and the water, because that's going to be really a quest for us. You know, in another 10 years, India has a lot of solar energy, will catch up with energy, and any product here, project here, is by default goes up to silver certification. But there is where something that we would like to learn from you. How do we enhance those capabilities with us? So, Dr. Vellen, this is something which I want to know from you. Besides the performance of the green product with respect to energy, water, etc., you mentioned very interesting thing in your 2 slides, the wellness and the healthy environment for the occupant, you know, because you hold such a large property and you are the largest property holder in Southeast Asia. So it becomes very important that the safety of the people, the wellness of the people, the prosperity of the people, how do you associate the green product, and how do you measure that particular aspect of it? It will be very interesting to know on that. You are muted, Dr. Vellen.
Yeah, thank you very much for this question. In fact, in building, if you look at it, you take about any employee or a professional working in office. If you look at in his 24 hours, the major time is spent in office. If you look at other than the sleep and travel and all those things, his maximum time is consumed inside the office premise where he is working. So that means what? It has to be a campus or it has to be a premise which has to take care of his health, safety, and all his other needs. Otherwise, what will happen? He will be fatigued. And knowing this kind of IT and other kind of professionals, they are going to be focus you completely for the entire hours of their business, right? So what happens? We focus on 5 elements when we are just looking at as focus areas for people. One is that we always look at the air they breathe. The air they breathe has to be completely comfortable, oxygen content. The current pandemic scenario also adding little more focus on that, kind of viral and all those things. Like you take care of additional care of adapting UVGI or other technologies in the AHU so that the viral or other infections are eliminated. Sufficient air changes are provided in the system so that they are all having good air to breathe when they are inside. Second factor is that more natural light, which is anyway part of our sustainability initiatives.
We can't hear you. You are gone muted, Dr. Velen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about it. The second is that on the natural lighting front, I was just mentioning about 75% of the light is through the natural lighting. That is what we focus. It is not only that energy saving or energy management point of view, but also the lighting, artificial lighting, also adds up fatigue for the people working in the inside the office in terms of the heat, in terms of various other elements. And number 3, we also look at bringing the outdoor in the office. What it means, the people working in the office should be able to see they are just in the garden or they are all having the view of that external things when they are working, so that also gives them that comfort. They are not confining themselves inside that 4 walls. Actually, last one also we look at it, building for resilience. So today we have lots of impacts. It can be any kind of catastrophe. There can be a tremor, there can be flood, there can be of the viral or any kind of situations. So we focus the comfort of the employees when they are working inside, not only physical comfort, mental comfort, and all those things are taken care by means of adopting the proper ventilation, proper color scheme, proper carpet system, and see, you can call anything, right for that day of working environment should be completely, the product used also is seamlessly, low carbon emission and all those things. So that and all helping a lot for the people. Those are the few initiatives we take it up when we are designing a kind of a campus for making the people feel safe, they are protected, they are comfortable. That's what the brief explanation for your question, please.
Yeah, that was quite brilliant. And I think you should also have some mechanism to capture that happiness quotient, develop some kind of a mechanism. So you can popularize, anything that is measurable, that is always convincing. Anything that is measurable can be improved, that can be institutionalized. So I'm sure the stalwarts like you have such a large bank of occupants and things. You should work out some research and capture that happiness by taking a survey of different segments of your employees, and popularize that as to how absenteeism has gone down, how the bonding levels have gone up, and that will be a great motivation for everyone. you know so so uh, so I think that is something that you should definitely do and bring it to all of our notice. So
Appreciate.
I come to Mr. Vishwajit. Before that, there was one question asked by one of the young panelists. He's asking, can you please give me an example of application of the green procurement? Best example. I would say, Diksha, the best example, you see all platinum rated projects. There are several platinum projects which are in every discipline. If you do the case study of those projects, you know how they have developed a green product strategy, because no platinum project is possible without having a green product. So that will be the best answer to your question. Hi, this is my last question for today. I'm actually tempted to ask you many questions, but because of the restriction of time, I will just take my last question with Mr. Vishwajeet. Being an architect, the most fascinated metal is steel. You know, I mean, steel always fascinates us a lot, and I'm really sure that there are a lot of innovative things are happening at your end. So one question where which is yet to catch up in India is the prefabricated steel structures. We have been using rebar, and we have been going for a more popular method, which is a reinforced concrete structures. You know, so when we want to go for a more of a prefabricated exposed steel structures, one issue we face is about its fire resistance and its fire fighting capability. So there's a slight divergence here, but again, I want to know, is there any innovation that you can come up with whereby we can more rigorously use steel as an exposed steel for the prefabricated structures?
Thank you for the question. I think, as I was describing, our Nestin is one such prefab solution that we offer, and it is from studio building, studio, etc. Your question related to firefighting. Uh, I'm not sure what range of temperatures you're talking about, but these are steel structures typically. So the steel structures, these are typically made from common manganese steel with a little microalloys. I don't think until the temperatures are very high, reaching some 80 degrees, I think there is too much of an issue there. I'm not sure exactly what range of temperatures you are referring to.
See, normally we require 1.5 hour fire resistance for all our exposed steel structures.
Yeah,
We'll
so
doing
I'll
vermiculite fracture of
yeah, so for a 1.5 hour, I think for the prefab structures, because these are flat steels, there are two ways of strength in two broad ways of getting strength in steel. One is by the composition of the steel, and second is by the treatment of the steel. Now, in prefab structures, typically it is a composition effect through which we get the strength of the steel. Now, in prefab structures, where the properties are maintained by the chemical composition, in case of a fire, the chemical composition does not change in the steel. So there should not be too much of a worry in terms of reduced strength post the fire and things like that. Uh, in a situation where the steel has got its strength mostly from the heat treatment, there would be some degree of work to ensure that the steel retains its yield strength or the tensile strength at elevated temperature. But in case of prefab structures, which are mostly made from flat steel, the steel is made from the properties are maintained by from the chemical composition itself. Since the change during fire situations, there should not be too much of a worry in terms of firefighting.
right, because all of us know post-COVID everywhere, on-site construction will be optimized, minimized, off-site prefabricated construction methodologies will be more encouraged. And this is only one aspect with the steel. Once it is convincingly mitigated, I am very sure there will be an exponential growth in prefabricated steel structures. So thank you, all of you. And I once again appreciate and admire your valuable participation for this GreenPro Summit. And uh, this has definitely benefited me, and I'm sure to all the viewers. So we look forward to see you more often into this initiative of IGBC. And thank you once again. And good evening and good night to Leonie. You have been very kind. It's a long day for you. So thank you very much. Thank you for all of you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So we can conclude, right?
Yes, sir. Thank you everyone for joining us, sir, and thank you so much for the wonderful chair for the session. And we request all the participants to join us back tomorrow from 2 o'clock onwards for the other sessions, please. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Sandeep.
Thank you, Dr. Velan. Always
Thank
pleasure
you.
to see you. Looking to see you in person. Thank you. Bye.
Muted first.
Overthinking and ethically sustainable. Our next emerging consumer brand is Incubix. Overthinking and ethically sustainable. Our next emerging consumer brand is Incubix. Thanks for recognizing Incubix as a emerging consumer brand of the year. Incubix is already designing and manufacturing the largest number of green-certified modular furniture and utility systems in India. Our products are designed and made right here in India and getting the promotion world for their innovation and out-of-box design. In fact, they can lot of products imported from China and other countries. These products can bring down the time of execution of interior offices, hospitals, transport hubs, institutions, hotels, and even residences from many months to just a few days, and with minimum human resources on site.
One minute.
For over 130 years, our culture of innovation has shaped the lives of millions, building better, brighter, and happier lives, full of color and opportunity. It all stems from research meticulously developed by scientists. At our world-leading facilities, we're all part of a diverse family, together making a comprehensive manufacturing, offering a complete integrated solution for total peace of mind. We're a Pan-Asian family unified with service by our needs of global growth, vigilance, insatiable appetite, agility, lean, stamina, willingness to lead from the front of the back. Responsibility is ingrained in our DNA. Promoting developing skills because people have part of our comfort. Together, We continue to set a new standard called the vehicle. Stain, enhance, rigid, shift, implants. And chemistry by offering developers architects existing options. Realize their ambitions and through our consumers strive to deliver best end-to-end solutions, including science services.
Yeah, Hemant, we can close.
Okay, I'm closing the session then, ending the event.